This is Tracy V. Wilson from Stuff You Missed in History Class. Toyota is the best resale value brand for 2024, according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com. So choose a Toyota and get the confidence that your vehicle will retain its value year after year, ride after ride. And check out the all-new 25 Camry or test drive a stylish and affordable Corolla. Find out more at buyatoyota.com. Vehicles' projected resale value is specific to the 2024 model year. For more information, visit Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com. Kelley Blue Book is a registered trademark of Kelley Blue Book Company, Inc. Toyota, let's go places.
This is Dr. Joy Harden Bradford from Therapy for Black Girls. You know that Amazon has millions of books, so you can find one that gives you just the reading feeling you're looking for. You know, like if you're looking for a relaxed feeling, like with a beach read, Amazon has got it covered. Or if you're looking for more of a terrified with evil twins or things lurking in the woods or something, Amazon's got you. I mean, even if you want an teen romance, Amazon has it covered too. Amazon Books. That reading feeling awaits.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins.
Well, look who we have here. Welcome. Great to see you. Thanks for coming to hang out and listen to people talk about punk, hardcore, indie rock, emo, metal, whatever it is, as long as it's of the DIY variety and a person is creating it, been influenced by it, and is just, a lifer. Like, you're going to be 70 years old and being like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and listen to the newest Propaganda record, even though, maybe they're probably not being a band, some 50 years in the future. Anyways, regardless, you are here to listen to discussions with people who care about this stuff. And today is, of course, no exception, because that would be weird if I was interviewing a person. I guess I have done that in the past, but anyways, I digress. We have Pedro Carrillo from A Dying Wish, or actually Dying Wish, not A Dying Wish, Dying Wish, who is, they're an incredible band, and they are absolute workhorses. They are signed to Sharp Tone Records. They are a great band. Like, if you like metalcore of the 90s, 2000 variety, just amped up, and sort of modernized, put their own twist on it, that is exactly what Dying Wish is. I love the band. I think they're incredible. And that is why I had to have Pedro on, because I had Emma, the vocalist, on a few different episodes. Did a live one with her, and then had her on, gosh, I don't know, it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It was a long time ago. But regardless, Pedro is the axe swinger, as it were. The axe lead guitar, I don't know. Lead guitarist, rhythm guitarist, whatever. Guitarist, you get it. And Pedro is an incredibly thoughtful and sweet dude, and I was glad to have this discussion with him. So some things that you can do to, of course, interact with the show. Obviously, you know what's up. Social media, you can follow us on Instagram, all that stuff. But you can email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. Love to get emails, feedback, whatever it is that is on your mind and you want to talk about. I'm here for it. And you can also leave a rating and review on the Apple Podcast page, or just leave a simple rating on Spotify. All of those things help out tremendously. And I know you hear like everybody plead with you on other podcasts. There's a reason we do that. So just go ahead, take 30 seconds out of your day, and then boom, you're done, moving along. Also, I just got back from the amazing Outbreak Festival over in the UK. I recorded a ton of episodes for the Outbreak Podcast. So do me a favor, dive into the show notes of this particular episode, and you'll see a link to the Outbreak Podcast. I'm going to start releasing these episodes probably in August or so. They're really fun discussions. They're slightly different than what we do here, and that's, by function. But so if you like discussions and finding out about, other things that are on people's minds besides how cool is your new record, how's tour, like those things are still not discussed. So anyways, do me a favor, do that. let's talk about weekly recommendations, because I've been doing this. I mean, we're halfway through the year, and I've been doing this since the beginning of January, where I'm just recommending music to you that I have either tripped across recently, I have rediscovered, or whatever it is. Today is a great band called Alceste. The record is called Les Chants de l'Oreille, which that's like my terrible, terrible French accent. But Alceste is a metal shoegaze melodic metal band from France. This newest record came out on Nuclear Blast Records. I want to say this is their like 5th LP, but I've loved this band for a long time. I got a chance to see them many moons ago, probably like 2013, 2014 maybe, at the El Rey Theater in LA. And I mean, they're just a beautiful band. Like, they really know how to craft heavy music, melodic music mixed with, black metal. It's a really, really good combination that I know on the face, like, especially when you're talking about, like Deaf Heaven and Sunbather. And like, once bands of that ilk started to blend melody with black metal, it doesn't sound as foreign of an idea here in 2024. And Alceste has been doing it for 15 years. They're a great band, and this newest record is no exception to the rule. So if you like any of that, of what I just threw your general direction, you will love this record. So there's a link in the show notes where I toss all of the music recommendations throughout the year. So hopefully you'll be able to, follow along and find some new music, because that's the important thing. It's just, finding new music, finding stuff that you love that you never have been turned on to. So go ahead and dive in the show notes. You will see a link to that playlist. So now let's talk to Pedro from Dying Wish, because they're a great band and you need to listen to them. So here we go. I usually start these things off with my own kind of personal entry point to, your music and everything like that. And I got keyed into Dying Wish, definitely. It was right before you guys signed to Sharptone. And it was one of those things where, being a person of a certain age that grew up with the 90s metalcore stuff, it was like, oh, cool. It's like what all of those bands that we're doing that I grew up with, but it's just updated a little bit, to obviously put your own twist on it. And now the fact that we've been able to watch bands kind of grow up in front of us. I mean, I know we always have, but just like watching you guys kind of refine the fact like of what you want to put out in the world. Is it fun for you to be able to be like, oh man, like looking back on, our demo or our first record or whatever, it's just like, we feel like children now versus, that we're like adults now. Like, is it interesting for you to kind of like look back, or do you even get nostalgic over your early recordings?
It's a little bit of both. I'm kind of weird in the fact that like for instance, whenever we put out like an album or like a demo or an EP or whatever, like I don't listen to it after it's done. Like I'm just like over it, not in like a negative way, but just in like, I'm so, like such critic about myself that I'm like, okay, well, now that I did that, I can be like relaxed and be like, okay, well, if people like it, people like it. If not, who cares? And then there's like the other part of me that's just like, it'll like sometime will go past, and then all of a sudden, like you'll hear like one of your old songs, you're like, oh yeah, like I remember when we, wrote that, or when we played shows and still had that in the set list. So it's a little bit of both for me. But it is weird, almost being 30 and like looking back at like, 6 years ago when the band was like just, starting sort of, but like still in that weird, like in between of like, well, we're a hardcore band, so we're not going to really like make anything out of it. And then it turned into this whole, now it's like a job basically.
Right. Yeah. And especially too, where it's like, even though, by exactly what you're talking about, where, 6 years ago, there was an idea of a path forward for bands to be able to I mean, I'm going to use the words make a living in air quotes because obviously, like making a living, like, you could probably earn more money at Starbucks or whatever, but that's,
Yeah.
but it's like just that notion of being like, oh, other bands have done this. So like we can maybe get to that point, but you're like, it's not within reach. So you're not going to pin your hopes and dreams on it,
Yeah, definitely. Like when the band started, like it was one of just those things where it's like, well, we want to make music, like this. There's not really a lot of bands doing it in our scene in Portland. Like, why not? Like, fuck it. Let's just do it and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's like, oh, I guess we have to like sign contracts and make business decisions to like form an LLC. You're like, what? What? This is weird.
You're like, oh, we have a manager now? I'm like, what the hell? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll dig a little bit into that later, but focusing on you as a person, were you actually born in the Pacific Northwest or where'd you come up?
My parents are from Mexico and they migrated to Oregon like early 80s around that time. And then basically like I have a bunch of family in California. I have a bunch of family in Chicago, like East Coast. We're spread out a lot. But my family was like more on like we need to raise kids in like a more calmer setting than like LA or something. So then they got to Oregon and they settled in this like little suburb called Oregon City, which is like 25, 30 minutes south of Portland. And yeah, I like grew up there, went to school there, met Jeff, our drummer there. And then Emma moved from Medford, which is like Southern Oregon. Met her in middle school, and then yeah, basically been in the Northwest all my life. Now up until now, like now I'm looking into moving to the South to North Carolina. But yeah, most of my life has always been Northwest.
Got it. Yeah, because it is, I mean, I personally live in Southern California, and so being raised around, Latino Hispanic culture, that's like, part and parcel of it. And I know that there's obviously pockets across the country. So like, did you and your family, I mean, obviously you felt comfortable enough to be like, all right, this is where we're, kind of setting up shop, so to speak. Did you notice like a community around, your culture, or was it basically like, oh, so we're the brown kids in the sea of white?
That at first it definitely was like that. It was like, oh, like it's like me and one other kid in the class, and everyone else is white, and we're like the two brown kids. But like, I never really felt any like sort of like singularity at times. Like there wasn't like just blatant racism or anything like that. It was one of those weird things where like a suburb was actually like, oh, like they're different, but it's like fine. Like it wasn't like crazy.
Yep.
Which is like, a little bit not like I guess a little bit unheard of most of the time, but just for whatever reason, we also just and I think a lot of it had to do because my uncle owns a restaurant in Oregon City. So like our name was kind of like quote unquote known around the town. So it was like, oh, that's the kid whose uncle like owns that really good Mexican restaurant. So I think that helped a little bit.
Sure.
But yeah, it was, just your normal upbringing. I didn't really see anything crazy until like I actually like went downtown Portland and, told my mom I was going somewhere else, but took the bus downtown to go see a show or something.
Right. Yeah. I love that idea of I mean, regardless of your culture, race, upbringing, or whatever, but when you do have that anchor in the community of like, oh yes, like, my mom or dad runs like the auto repair shop, or like the visibility of what you're talking about of, your uncle having, the bomb Mexican spot or whatever. It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, oh dude, Pedro's cool. Yeah. Yeah. His family makes good food. We're great.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Did you ever work at the restaurant?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I probably, and what's funny is I was like always, against it because like I was like, I'm never gonna work in the service industry. Like that stuff is like the worst. And then I turned like 20 and I was like, well, I got nothing else to do. So, and I just started waiting tables at my uncle's restaurant. And I mean, I had like other jobs, like in between that and after that, but it was definitely like a family business as we're like, you know, one cousin will work there for like 6 months to a year and then like we'll leave and then like another one. And then ultimately when I turned 20, I was like, all right, well, it's my turn now, I guess.
Right. And,
Yeah.
and I think too, there's something that has been so attached to people creating art in general around the, transitory nature of either restaurants or bartending, where it's like, dude, that skill, once you learn it, like you can go anywhere, you can live anywhere, you're probably going to be able to find a job and you're probably going to be able to like make enough to make rent and then still do all the things you're doing, with the band or with your art or whatever.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like it was one of those jobs that I had where I like, because my aunt did payroll and scheduling. So when like Dying Witch had like a weekend tour, like we're gonna be gone for a couple of weeks for like a regional thing, I could just be like, hey, like Tia, like I'm gonna be gone from this day to this day, and then she was always like, okay, cool, like I got you. Like I didn't have to like talk to corporate, send a letter to HR or anything. It was like just easy.
Yeah, totally. It's like, but then you would be like, oh yeah, so I'm going to be gone with my hardcore band. And they're like, what are you talking about, Pedro? What a hardcore band?
Yeah. 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 No, yeah. I was very lucky and like, most of my family was very supportive because they're just like, oh yeah, like he's gonna do what he's, always been wanting to do. So it's like cool for them to support that. But like, I know when I would explain it to like my other like family friends that are like not in my immediate family, they'd be like, what? Like, why aren't you going to school? Like stuff like that.
Yeah, of course. Why don't you do something practical with your life?
Yeah, exactly.
And on that tip, did you, as you were, growing up, like what was your family structure like in the house? Like mom and dad there, brothers and sisters? What did that look like?
Yeah. Mom and dad both worked, 2 jobs, worked their butts off to support me and my brother and my sister. I'm the oldest. Um, I definitely was like the first one to push the envelope on a lot of things. So they had it a little bit easier than I did. Um, like first one to get tattoos, first one to, start doing a lot more extracurriculars, all that stuff. But I definitely, when they were working a lot, I was, the babysitter. So I took care of them, definitely. My sister, she came out to be like the academic one out of the family. And then my brother also loves music, but is like more into like hip hop and like, SoundCloud stuff. So it's like kind of a mirror thing, but it's like a different different genre.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the older brother responsibility or even older sibling in general. It's like when you have, more than one kid and then to your point, the parents are hustling to, make ends meet. You just become the default parent, whether you are even remotely responsible. It's like, you have to be like, there's no choice in the matter.
Yeah, you just kind of just fall into it. Like I remember like babysitting my little sister when I was like 10 and like, dad works the night shifts. Mom will be back before like midnight, like from the bar. So like make sure like she's all good before school, and I also make sure you're good before school the next day, like stuff like that. And it's like, and I think that helps just maturing like a lot quicker in life. Helped just me being able to deal with situations now. So like at the time I was like, oh, this is probably not, normal, but at the same time, whose childhood is really normal?
Yeah. You only know what you know until you get exposed to other people's backgrounds and experiences. And then you start to go, oh, maybe it was weird that I was like, packing all my siblings' lunches and doing all this when, all these other people were just like, oh, your mom or dad was around doing this for you? That's weird.
Yeah. Like, wait a minute.
Totally.
It was very not culture shock, but just like, oh, well, that's different.
Yeah, absolutely. And picking at that a little bit, just the idea of the responsibility. Did you feel? I mean, I know like we were joking about, like you had no choice, but like, did you feel, I wouldn't call it resentment, but did you feel kind of like that, man, this is kind of a bummer that I have to do this? Or was it just like, no, I didn't know any different, so I just did it?
I think there was definitely like little pockets of time where I felt like that. But now that I'm like a little bit older, I'm always like thankful in a way that like that happened, because I'll see like my friends or like people, my peers, people that I know, like going through certain situations, and I'm just like, just do it like this. Like it's not, doesn't have to be the end of the world. Like just figure it out like that. Um, and for whatever reason, like I think that's what gave me like resilience and kind of like stubbornness in a lot of things. But at the end of the day, I feel like it does help on a lot of like world problems or like adult problems that we face in like late 20s, early 30s now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because even if you don't feel like you're developing this sense of responsibility because, you're just operating the way you know you have to be there for your siblings, it comes to a point where it's like, oh, now I know how to be this person for, my bandmates, or it's like, yeah, I can take care of you guys. Like, what do you need?
Yeah, no, and I think part of the reason why I'm always so like, if anybody messes with my friends or my family, I'm always so like, okay, I hate them. Like, fuck them.
Right.
Because I think it came from that, like inherently. It was just like, I'm gonna take care of you guys. And if anybody messes with you, I will kill them.
Right. I'm going to circle the wagons. Everybody is protected as long as I'm on the watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you care about school? Like, were you, well, actually, first of all, let me back up. Were you a native Spanish speaker, or did you learn English from the get-go, or how does that fit in your life?
When I was born, my parents didn't really speak too much English in the house. It was mostly Spanish. And then like when I started like preschool and like first grade, second grade, I was just picking up from what our English from just watching like TV. So that's kind of how I learned all of that. And then like that kind of made it easier for my siblings, because it was like, oh, like I can just, show them that this means this and that. And then like to the point now where like just me and my sister are bilingual, and my little brother kind of grew up with both of us just speaking English in the house. So he doesn't know too much Spanish, but he understands it. So it's just kind of funny how that worked out.
Right. And the reason I ask that is just because, I mean, as you start to go to school and start to your point, like learn all these different phrases, and because English, I always feel so empathetic for people that are learning English versus other languages, because English is by far just the hardest. Like I understand everybody like learning other languages is difficult, but English, I'm just like, dude, it's such a heavy lift for people to understand how to use that. And then on top of it, use like conversational English. And so anyways,
No, it's true. Yeah. Like,
I imagine that was difficult.
yeah, like certain words, like the same word will mean two different things, or like, the different, just, yeah, like I can definitely, I'm also the same way when I see people who like don't pick it up that quick, or still don't really like speak too much English, or it's just like, yeah, it's fine, I'll translate.
Right. Yeah. You're like, I get it. The reason I asked that is the schooling, like, did you care about school? Were you one of those people that, enjoyed certain classes, didn't like others, or was it pretty much just, nah, school's not that interesting?
Yeah, I hit a wall in 8th grade where I was like, after 8th grade and like got into high school, I was like, I am over this. I definitely, was like, I'm gonna do music. That's what I'm gonna do. I don't care what it is. I'm gonna do it. I don't need college. And my stubborn ass just kind of had that same attitude the whole way. But I did, funny enough, I did enjoy like poetry class and like English class. But there was a good time where I just barely went to school and had to make up a bunch of credits my senior year just to like walk with my class and graduate on time. So I regret that a little bit, but like I knew that like, high school, college wasn't going to be a thing for me.
Yeah. Well, and I think to that idea of once you reach that point where school becomes, challenging, or your interests divert, where it's like, whether it's sports or whether it's like, oh, I want to be in politics or whatever it is that kids get interested in, that's where it's like difficult to keep that train on the tracks, because you're just like, but I'm interested in this. Why can't I just do more of this?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I was the epitome of just like, this sucks. I want to get out. It's so bad.
Band merchandise is the lifeblood of our community. Rockabilia.com is an awesome place for you to pick up said merchandise. And if you use the promo code 100 words or less, that's the number 100 words or less, you will get 10% off your entire order. Why am I talking like a robot? I don't know. But regardless of the jokes that I make, I love Rockabilia, and you need to dive onto their website, because you will find officially licensed merch from bands of all shapes and sizes. Whether it is like, yo, I'm a huge metalhead and I want some Slayer, some Iron Maiden, some Metallica, or if it's like, maybe I want to go the pop route or what have you, or maybe I want to go, the country route. Whatever it is, they have so many pieces of merch that it just feels great to order from them. Ships from the Midwest to the United States of America, gets to you very fast. If you ever have any issues, they have extremely, extremely efficient and friendly customer service, and just top to bottom. Love this company, love what they do. And I know you will find something that you could buy for yourself, for your friends, family, gifts, birthdays, whatever it is you're celebrating. I mean, who's going to be mad at a piece of band merch? No one. I mean, realistically. And if they are, then they probably shouldn't be your friend or your family member. Not like you have a choice, but anyways, rockabilia.com, use the promo code 100 words or less. It lets them know that this show sent you. And that is very meaningful in the world of marketing. Rockabilia.com, go check it out. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know what it's like. You're just rolling through your day. Everything's fine. All of a sudden, you look at your phone, pop into some social media app, and then boom, you're just assaulted with all of these things that frankly weren't bumming you out before. And then you're like, you know what? I'm not as good as this person. I'm not at this point in my life versus this person that's like 10 years younger than me. And then you just start to spiral. It's bad. First of all, put your phone away. Second of all, a great resource is therapy. It is a perfect place for you to be able to disconnect from all of that external noise that influences the way you feel about yourself. I love therapy. I've done it for many years, and I wholeheartedly endorse that practice. And that's why I love working with BetterHelp, because if you're thinking of starting therapy, please give BetterHelp a try. It's all online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire, and then you get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for zero additional charge. Stop comparing yourself to others and start focusing on yourself with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Ray today to get 10% off of your first month. That's betterhelp.com/Ray. Try it out. And so when did music come into play? Like, I'm guessing, obviously, your parents, or you didn't have older siblings showing you stuff. Was it just something that you tripped on with your friends and then started to dive in deep?
Yeah, so my mom, she was definitely like, well, I'll say both my mom and dad, but my mom was at home more, and she would always be having music playing in the house, like if she was cleaning or if she was just, doing little tasks around the house. There'd always be music playing. I remember that. My dad, he is like an insane like singer for like old like mariachi stuff. Like he can like hit a note really well. And then but the way I found like, punk, hardcore, whatever you want to call it, my cousin, my older cousin who lived like in Portland, right outside Portland, and we'd go over there to my grandma's house a lot of the time. And he was like learning how to play guitar. He was like 7 years older than me. So when I saw him like with a guitar, I was like, what the hell is that? And then he would play music off the computer that was in the living room. And it was like, the first things I can remember were like Green Day, the Ramones, stuff like that. And I don't know what it was, but I gravitated towards that a lot. And just like from there, it just kind of spun into, okay, like that's what I want to do. Those guys on TV playing the guitar look awesome. Like I want to do that.
Got it. So it was almost just like that intangible cool factor that you saw and you're like, oh, I don't know what itch this scratches, but just that looks interesting and I want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This is a completely stereotypical thing, but like, did you have to get indoctrinated into, liking Morrissey and the Smiths and stuff like that?
No, that's funny. That was almost later in life where I was like, all right, I'm gonna give the Smiths a try. What's this about? Because like all my friends listen to them and they're like, oh yeah, the Smiths are sick. Like Morrissey, obviously bad human, but like
Yes.
couple hits, unfortunately, under his belt. And I was like, okay, this is pretty sick.
Yeah. No, the reason I ask is because I just find it that, I mean, specifically within Southern California, that almost seems like a rite of passage, like regardless of what sort of music you're getting into, whether you're just like, I don't want anything to do with guitars at all. It's like, you have to like the Smiths or Morrissey. It's like, it's just,
yeah.
Yeah. But that was the only reason I asked, because like when that entered your life, because, that at some point it has to, and then you have to reckon with it, whether it's like, I do like this or no, I don't like this aspect of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, like the person that I saw vividly, I remember like play guitar first was like Johnny Ramone. And I was like, dude, that guy's the coolest. Like he's got a leather jacket on, like fucking Converse, long ass hair. I'm just like, I need to be that. Like this guy's the coolest guy ever.
Totally. I also love those like really crystallized memories that you have as you're getting exposed to music, where it's like, it can be something so simple where it's like you said, just, the Converse or whatever, something that now to people like you and I is so universal. But like when you first see it, you're just like, what is that? Where do you get that? I want to know that.
Yeah, no, I remember like begging my mom to like, Mom, like for school, I want a pair of Converse. I mean, sure, I guess. Like, I don't know where you're picking this up. Like we'll go get you a pair of Converse. I don't know why you need them all of a sudden, but I was like, no, I need these.
Yeah, you're like, you don't understand. This is going to unlock a lot for me.
Yeah.
As you started to really be focused on music and understanding that you wanted to pursue this, whatever that may mean, was guitar like always the thing, or did you want to kind of dabble around in a lot of instruments to see which one stuck?
Yeah, my first actual instrument was the bass. And that was only because when I told my parents what I wanted for Christmas, they, bless their heart, they were like, oh, he just wants a guitar. But they didn't understand the difference between a six-string guitar and a bass. So they bought me a bass, and I was like, this looks weird. Why doesn't this look like the one on TV? And I was like, oh, because it's a bass. Like my cousin was like, yeah, like they bought you a bass instead. I was like, oh. So I started on that for like the first like 2 years and just like learned like bass lines off of the internet. Like I would like look up a song and look up the tab for it. And then I didn't actually start playing guitar till like up until probably like senior year of high school, either junior or senior year of high school, because there was like a band that I was in for like a brief second that was just made up on the spot, and they needed a bassist, so I played bass, and then like immediately that band broke up after like 2 shows.
Sure. Well, I can probably see the logic in your parents' head where it's like, oh, there's 4 strings, so it'll probably be easier for him to learn.
Yeah.
And just like, yeah, bass maybe a little bit cheaper. Like, oh yeah, we'll just get him this and it works.
Yeah, no, and then I had like a weird like phase of just like, well, if I have a bass now, I guess I have to like look up like cool bassists and like music, and then like the few that came to mind were like the dude from Led Zeppelin, he rocked, and then I forget her name, but she plays in the Silver Sun Pickups. She also awesome bassist too.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I like you're like, oh, I need to find my analog for the cool guitar person. I'm gonna find my avatar with the bass player pretty quickly here, hopefully.
Yeah.
When you started to, I guess, dive deeper into, go into like local shows and stuff like that, like the greater Portland / Pacific Northwest scene has always been so interesting. I mean, for all the years that I played in bands and toured actively, like going up there was always, I mean, for one, it was an effort because it was like, all right, we're going to drive all this way. And then where do you go once you get to Seattle? It's like, got to go over to Boise and then keep heading east or whatever. But,
Yeah.
so how did you get introduced to like, you know, the more local bands and, you know, the Dead Unknown and everything like that?
Yeah. A lot of it was just, some of it was MySpace. Then it like switched over to like Facebook, and it was just like, adding friends from like shows. And it was like, you'd see, posts or just hear about shows. You see a flyer posted here and there. And for whatever reason, I was like, well, I need to go to this. And I was like, I'll just go by myself. Like I would go to like random house shows at people that I only would know because I saw them at like the show last week. And then I was like, just show up, like not talk to anybody because I was like too scared to like talk to the older kids. I'll be like in the back. But after a while, I'd see the same people every time. And then I'd like muster up the courage and be like, yo, what's up, man? And then our drummer, Jeff, he started coming to shows with me. So then I had a buddy to go with. So that helped a lot. And then that kind of just steamrolled into, playing shows. I've never booked a show, but, Emma, she books basically, or used to book at basically everything in Portland when we were coming up. And then, yeah, that's pretty much how it was.
Yeah. What were some of the local bands or, the bands that were from, it doesn't even have to be specifically Portland, but just that area that you really tapped into, whether or not they obviously had any traction or anything, but what grabbed you that was like, oh, like I've seen these kids at shows and then now they're playing in front of me. This is crazy.
Yeah. I'll have to show you. There's a famous video on YouTube. I think it's still there, of a house show that happened in Portland with a band called Born to Die. And I think another band called Grayscale played. They were more like emo, melodic, hardcore type stuff, but Born to Die was like a beatdown band. And that was it. That was like around the time where I was like, oh, like I like, heavy stuff, scary guy music. And me and Jeff go to this house show in random house in Portland, and we get there and it's like a little like living room, and they have like a PA set up. They got the drums and everything, and it's the tiniest room, but people are beating the absolute living shit out of each other. And I was there, 16 years old, like just, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, what the hell?
Right.
And then the funny part of the video is like, there's this old head there, named Osborne, and he starts like moshing, but he would mosh into the crowd, straight up look you in the eye and punch you in the face type stuff. And he started getting closer and closer to me, and he smacks me in the head. My hat flies across the room, and I'm just standing there like, whoa. And then like Jeff is gone. He's not behind me anymore. He like left the room because just the whole area was getting beat up. And then after that set was done, I was like, okay, cool. Like, when's the next show? Like, that was awesome. Just the funny tangent there. But Born to Die, there's a lot of like Seattle, Tacoma bands too when I was like coming up. Like Singled Out was one of them. Oblivion, that was a big one too. I also have terrible memory, but there was like a few venues up at the Red Room up there was sick. Like another Portland band called Unease. That was also like a couple of people in that band I was like kind of looked up to in the scene, and they're like, oh, those are the older kids, like their band's sick. Just a lot of stuff. And then like I just remember like Quesadilla Factory in Centralia, Washington was a big like venue that had like one of the first actual hardcore shows that I ended up going to. It was Rotting Out, Downpresser, and Stick Together in that place. And it's funny because it's like half restaurant, arcade, half venue.
Yeah.
And it was like, what one of those like shows where I was like, damn, like I actually saw that. That's crazy.
Yeah, those are by far the coolest memories. Like when you are watching bands in a non-venue setting, and it's like, yeah, it'll forever be cemented in your brain because you're just like, so that's weird. I watched a band at a pizza place or whatever, and like, okay, I guess we're doing that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny too, that same place had the story so far play at it like probably around the time Under Soil and Dirt came out, and now they're like the biggest band ever. It's like it's just crazy.
So as you started to, I guess, move forward and participate in going to shows and, make friends in the scene and everything like that. And like you said, it was your first experience, playing bass for a band for 2 shows or whatever. When the idea of Dying Wish started to come together, who were you guys initially trying to rip off in order to sound like? Because that's obviously how every band starts, where it's like, oh man, I want to sound like Integrity meets, Snapcase or whatever. Like, what was your agreed upon bands that you guys were all into?
Yeah, so there was like I think it might have been like a year or two of a band that was basically Dying Wish, but called something else. And that was just like, we were just figuring out, we didn't even know what we wanted to sound like yet. We just were like, well, we just want to play in a hardcore band. Like, we'll do whatever. Emma didn't know how to scream yet. Like, I finally bought a guitar, like with my own money, and just started playing and was like, okay, this sounds heavy, blah, blah, blah. And then like, fast forward 2 years and we're just like, okay, like, let's change the band name. We don't want to sound like this. Like, I was super into, like, at the time, I was very into, like, that old metalcore stuff, like Disembodied, 18 Visions, Throwdown, like, bands kind of like that, where we're like, we want, breakdowns and, like, dissonant chords. Maybe we'll add a little singing, I don't know. But, like, we just wanted the heavy, like, chug, parts. Another band, obviously, Killswitch Engage, like, those were kind of our influences. And with the EP, well, not the EP, but the split that we did with the Suration, that was like the first time we were like, okay, like, let's add some singing in there. Like, let's see what happens. And then turns out that's just kind of our thing now, where it's like heavy breakdown, and then Emma soars with a crazy chorus, and then breakdown again, and like, stuff like that.
Yeah. No, I love that, especially when everybody is trying to come together to, write original material as, a young adult / child. Like, you have no idea what you're doing, and you're just like throwing riff salad together. And then like all of a sudden you get that thing that starts to come together. That's like, oh, that's a part that sounds really good. And like, I think this is actually a song. Like, there's nothing that's more exciting than when you trip across that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it, I mean, not even I know a lot of it came from when Sam came into the band around that time, and he's like a master shredder / song maker / like, he, like, a lot of the time I'm learning stuff that he writes, because I'm just like, dude, I'm blanking, like, I don't know anything. And he's like, well, I have this song, and like, he'll write something crazy. I'm like, okay, well, I'll learn how to play that. And then, yeah, like, once Sam joined the band and we became 5 people, it definitely changed for the better. And it was like, okay, I think we can do something with this.
Evilgreed.net, fine purveyors of heavy music, merchandise, and music. Love this company so much. They have a very specific point of view in regards to the bands and record labels that they work with. They ship all of this stuff from their headquarters in Berlin, Germany, and it gets to you worldwide very quickly. And the shipping rates here in the United States are unbelievably advantageous for us right now. So that means like you can order something from Berlin, Germany, and it gets to you for a very cheap cost, all things considered. And let me just name some of the labels that they work with. They work with Sargent House. They work with Triple B Records. They work with Flat Spot Records. They have so many cool band stores and record label stores that you need to pay attention to. So go to evilgreed.net and shop till you drop or your heart's content or whatever. But evilgreed.net is the place to go.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
You know, I know that you and Emma not only have known each other for a long time and clearly have like such a intrinsic trust and support of one another, but you guys being able to, you know, collaborate on lyrics, like that's always something that I know is a delicate balance where it's like some, you know, bands like no shots against Newfound Glory, but I just always find it so wild that it's like Chad writes all the lyrics and Jordan sings them. And he's done that ever since the band existed. I'm just like,
Oh, wow.
I was like, that feels, yeah, I don't know if you knew that, but anyways, but yeah, there you go. So it's like Jordan, I'm sure I'm maybe giving Jordan a little short shrift here, but like, I know that he contributes, but like, anyways, just that idea of collaborating on lyrics, I know is so delicate and sensitive, but how have you and Emma kind of like found that balance beyond the fact that you guys trust each other, you know, implicitly?
Yeah, it kind of just happened one time where I think a lot of it was like I would always have stuff written because, you know, I was either depressed or I was angry or I was sad at the time, and then I was like, okay, this will be cool for a song. Like, let me write this down. And then, you know, as a singer of the band, I also feel like, yo, you should, you know, write lyrics too, because, you know, it can't just be me, and you're the one singing these things, so it's like I want you to feel like you got a voice in this, and you got like, you know, you can get your own point across with a lot of the topics, and then a lot of the time, you know, it's funny because we have this like kind of a bit in the band where it's like, oh, that's a peace song because it's either like really angry or about, you know, hurting somebody or doing something bad to somebody who's betrayed you, or, you know, stuff like that. And then an Emma song will be more like self-deprecating, a little bit more like, you know, emotional, you know, not to say that, but it is at the same time.
Sure.
But yeah, like, you know, it's on the Symptoms of Survival, like Pray For Me and Paved in Sorrow are like really close to each other, and I would just look at the albums like that's like literally me and Em.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and especially too, what you're talking about, just being able to pull each other in different directions in a positive way, where it's like, if you collaborate, you know, the message will land maybe more towards the middle rather than being like, you know, like insanely dramatic or insanely pissed or whatever. It's just like, oh, if we put our heads together, like this will probably be better because of this.
Yeah. And a lot of the times if I'm feeling like I can't write something to this riff or this part of the song, she comes in and saves me. And I do the same for her. So it's like, even if there is a stark difference in our writing styles or in like the way we, you know, approach a lot of them, we always got each other's back, like either way. Like there's been a lot of songs where we, you know, both have written a lot of it for, and they can be completely different point of views, but they still, you know, together they make sense. Like Watch My Promise Die was a song like that, where I wrote it in the vein of like, you know, Watch My Promise Die means like, no matter what I do, no matter how hard I'm gonna, you know, be there for a person, you know, like a relationship or a family member or a friend even, like no matter what how hard I work towards, you know, to fulfill that part of relationship, I'm going to fail because I'm doing this music thing and I have to put this first no matter what. And then she wrote it in the sense of just like, you know, imposter syndrome. Like she feels like no matter what she does in this music thing, like there's going to be like, it won't be enough. And at the same time, like they're different, but they're still the same.
Sure. Absolutely. It's like you're arriving at the same conclusion, except you're taking it from two different angles, which is, you know, like that's cool because you're like, oh, we're both experiencing the same thing together. We just view it a little differently, but we're arriving at the same conclusion.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, we're very lucky that we can do that because, there's like that we as a band love watching Some Kind of Monster, the Metallica documentary.
Oh, it's
And,
beautiful.
when they try to write lyrics as a band, it's incredible.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Especially too, where it's like, whatever, as stupid as the, old hip hop saying of more money, more problems. It's like there becomes a certain point where it's just like, even if you are insanely successful, no matter what happens, like you still are you still have all of the issues that you're dealing with on your own, and let alone in this weird relationship that's a band. And it's like, yeah, trying to unravel that with a band therapist in front of everybody as a documentary. That's one way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, like I probably would have not done that myself.
No,
but
same. Yeah.
I'm also not a millionaire, so who knows?
Totally. Something that I've always found really cool with Dying Wish is that even though you guys have, you'll tour with anybody, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, I mean, the first time I saw you guys after, getting into you, and after Tom was managing you, was on that Limp Bizkit tour here in Ontario, California. I was just like, it's the funniest thing I've ever witnessed. Just to watch a band like you guys play in front of kids who are just stoked to hear heavy music. Anyways, the reason I bring that up is because no matter what, you have obviously still been yourselves, but have tried to build that sense of community that clearly, like, the hardcore scene has given you guys. And I'm guessing that is something that you've probably not only internally communicated about, but that seems like a really core ethos to the band. Am I right in that, or is that me just like reading way too into it?
No, yeah, definitely. It's one of those things where, like, we always talk about that. Like, we'll be always down to tour with anybody, but we will never compromise, our ethos. And that is, do it yourself. Like, we come from a hardcore community, and we're very lucky that we're like able to do, all these things. But at the same time, like, once you take off all the layers, all that other not important stuff, like, we're just a hardcore band, we can play to whoever, we can play with whatever. Like, a lot of a normal topic in the band, like even with Tom, is just like, well, we don't want to stray too far from, our normal like hardcore audience, but also, wouldn't it be cool to grab all these kids from this genre, bring them to our area, and be like, yo, like, this is where we come from. Like, yeah, like, I don't want to name anybody, but I'm just saying, like, we can play with Limp Bizkit, and we've had like multiple kids come to our shows and be like, yo, like, the first time I saw you guys was there. And I'm like, yo, welcome. Like, you're here now. Like, I can't wait for you to, find out about all the other bands that we're into, and like what inspired us to even like play this type of music. And I feel like a lot of bands are too scared a lot of the time to do that, because it's like, oh, well, my friends won't think this is cool, so I'm not going to tour with this band. But it's like, to me, when I saw like somebody on stage with like a shirt, like a 100 Demons shirt or something, like, my first instance would be like, okay, who's 100 Demons? I need to figure that out. And that's, kind of what I've always been about on stage, where I'm like, if a kid can see what we're repping or what type of influences got us here, like, and brings them to hardcore, then like, that's the whole reason we're doing it.
Yeah. It gives me such great pleasure to hear that, because I think it's something that I think is not only so important for, bands to continue to pass that tradition along, but just like, frankly, it's fun. Like, I know for a fact that like when you're going out on tour, you are looking at your band shirts and being like, all right, here's the 7 I'm bringing out. Like, of course I'm going to bring my Throwdown hoodie out or whatever. Like, you're like, this is what I'm going to wear on stage, because this signals not only who I am, but obviously what the band has built into it as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, like, yeah, we are at this show with this lineup, but, don't forget where we're from, type of thing.
As you started to, tour incessantly, and like, I mean, you guys are, continually on the grind and are very focused at making sure that, you're playing as many shows as possible without, killing yourselves too much, at least.
Yeah.
The work ethic is there. The point being, how is your relationship with touring I guess, either changed or evolved? Like, I'm sure there's elements of it that you still enjoy, but I'm sure there's elements that are like, oh, wow, I didn't expect this going into it. How's, where's your head at in regards to, touring, broadly speaking?
Yeah, I still enjoy it. We as a band also kind of just hit a mark where we're a lot more comfortable now. We don't have to be cramped up in a van as much. And I think the overnight driving, that type of stuff, like doing a show, regardless of a lot of work, doing a show with like no sleep is like incredibly taxing. And like, I think a lot of the times is the main reason that like bands will fight or bands will be, mad at each other. But now that we are in a position where like, everyone gets to sleep, there's a schedule, every day, there's a routine. Like I usually go to the gym before the show to like, keep my head clear, do all that stuff. But just like a constant routine that's like precise, I think is really good. For a lot of us too. And I still enjoy it. I don't know if there will be a time where I start hating it. The parts I do hate is being away from like, my partner, my family, missing birthdays, missing, Christmases even, like stuff like that. That will always suck. But, it comes with the territory once you like sign up for this.
Right. And you, this is maybe me playing a little armchair psychologist, but like you've always seemed like the, strong and silent type, if I'm kind of over typifying you, but just like, a person that like you're obviously comfortable on stage, you know how to do that, and you know how to get up there. But you're not the person that's like, oh man, like look at me, because obviously there are different elements of people's personalities that make them more able to do that. Would you categorize that as somewhat correct, or am I again just misreading you as a human being?
No, that's probably exactly correct. Like I think a lot of my friends would agree with you on that. And a lot of it just comes from, mostly insecurity, but it's also just like, I'm just on stage playing music. That doesn't mean I'm better than you because you're like on the floor. Cause like that's another thing from hardcore, I think, that kind of just never left my brain, where it was like, actually, I'll even say this, like Terror has like a famous quote. Scott always, most of the time, always says it on stage, like, this is your show. Like, we're just on stage here, but this is your guys' show. And I think that's a lot of the time why I'm just like, not chilling, but just, acting quiet, but still like in the pocket when I'm on stage.
Right. You're like, we are creating the environment in which you can, you're just as important as we are, as opposed to like, oh, we're performers and watch us. We're so cool.
Yeah. And I also like see, like whenever we approach other bands or like we're on tour with other bands or play festivals, and they'll say they're a hardcore band or like, whatever. You can really tell who's cut from the same cloth when it comes to that type of stuff, where it's like, oh, you're performing, like, cool, like that's awesome, good for you, but like we're from this world and that's that's our thing, but like do your own thing over there type of thing.
Right. It's different. It's and that's honestly where I think the rubber hits the road with the difference between, punk and hardcore and other genres of music, where it's like music that contains that element of, community, political nature, like all that stuff is all mixed into the stew, rather than a band that just gets up there and is like, yes, we're here to entertain. And like, that's fine. But it's also, to your point, like you're not cut from that same cloth.
Yeah, exactly.
Two last things I want to hit on was the fact that I think it's required for, I don't know if it's around like 26 or 27 years old, most hardcore people have to do MMA. I know you are one of them.
True. Yeah, I subscribe to that.
Yes, you either do that or like get into like something, or you're like, oh, I want to like learn how to tattoo or be a barber or whatever. Like it's something that is like tangible where you feel like you have to like learn a skill. And I'm not, meaning that in a mean way, but, what drew you into, doing that? Like, was it, a friend and you like just went to a class and were like, oh, this is interesting? Or were you always kind of curious about the sport?
It definitely came from my parents. So,
Okay.
so it started with my mom's side of the family, like in like Mexico. So boxing is a huge deal, huge deal. And I remember like growing up, like whenever like Julio Cesar Chavez would be having a big pay-per-view fight, my family would be the house where like everyone would come over and watch it, and all my fucking uncles and aunts would get really drunk. So like combat sports was always like around, but I never really paid attention to it until like around the pandemic where we had nothing to do. So then like Portland had a bit of a more stricter regime than a lot of other cities. So once I actually decided, I was like, oh, I'm gonna try like Muay Thai out. Like there's a school like not too far from where I live. Like they seem, a lot more COVID friendly because, everyone was still being very, weird around that time. And they're like one of the first gyms to like actually open up. And I learned from a special dude from Thailand. And I went into it mostly from like, remembering the two times in life where I like kind of like did the coward way thing and just like didn't end up fighting whoever I was, having a problem with. And I went in there with that type of headspace, but then like leaving to go, like not leaving, but just going to other types of martial arts. It was like, oh, like none of that actually matters. Like I'm here because this makes my brain feel happy. Like, learning how to properly do these techniques and like kicking and hitting and elbowing and like getting it back at the same time from like your partner who you also have the same amount of respect for. It's like some weird bond that you form and inadvertently calms you down, which is like the weirdest thing to explain, but like that's what it is. And then from like Muay Thai, it turned into, oh, I want to learn jujitsu because, kicking and punching is cool, but like what happens when you get to the ground? So like I don't want to be like a dead fish when that happened. So then I learned jujitsu, and that turned into a whole even more like soul searching type of deal, because like when you put in those like types of holds, or you're like getting choked and you're like, 10 seconds away from like passing out, and then those 10 seconds you have to problem solve, like, okay, like how do I get out of this? And that, turns into life, and you're just like, okay, I'm broke now. How do I fix this situation? Oh, I'm homeless. How do I, get back up on my feet? Oh, you have a problem with, your friend, your mom, dad. Like, what is the mature way to go about this, rather than like lashing out, making the problem worse, type of thing. And everything just kind of like was a reflection of like things that would happen on the mat when I would do like 6 days a week. And going in now where I'm just like, I think I don't want to say it saved me, but I'll say that like it definitely matured me even more. So like I stopped becoming this kid who like thought I knew everything in life. Like I know street stuff, I know, everything else, but now I'm just like a lot more centered, calmed down. And who knew that it came from, getting choked out and punched every day.
Right. Well, I really, I appreciate you walking me through that, because I know it's like, I obviously was, flippant and joking with you about that, but I love the fact that you were able to sharpen who you were as a human being through the sport. And I think that's like, those are really the best things that you can get out of things that you put yourself into, whether it's, music, whether it's art or whatever. It's like when you just become a better version of yourself viewed through this lens, like that's amazing. Like you wish that on everybody, where it's like, dude, I hope that you find the thing that will make you a better human. It's so cool.
Yeah. And I'm always like encouraging my friends to try it. Cause like, I have a lot of hothead friends, and, I'm like, dude, this will help. I promise. And anytime I hear a little snippet of like, oh, I saw this fight the other night. It was really sick. I'm like, oh, do you want to learn how he did that? Or like, oh, do you want to go to my gym and see like how it's actually done like safely and you won't get hurt? But you know, we'll see. I'm trying to convince Emma to do it, but she keeps telling me she has too long of nails to do any of that. So we'll see.
You're like, listen, it's happened before, and you know, we'll make sure to, you know, tape up your nails as well, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Ye frickin' haw. That was Pedro from Dying Wish. Check out the band. They're constantly on tour, whether it's Europe, the States, Canada, whatever. They're relentless, and it's awesome because they put on a great show. I've seen them. Actually, I saw them open up for Limp Bizkit, as we talked about in the interview. I've seen them in clubs, seen them at Chain Reaction, just, you know, all of the local venues, so to speak. But great band. And thank you to Pedro for coming on. Thank you to his publicist, Tim. Thank you to his manager, Tom. Just great human beings all involved with this band. So great stuff. Next week, I have a returning guest to the show, Scott Lee, who is the proprietor or / co-owner, you know, it's a little nebulous, but I mean, brainchild, we'll call it, of the New England Metal and Hardcore Festival. He's been doing it for many, many years, relaunched it last year. I had the privilege and honor of being boots on the ground there, doing some interviews, and unbelievable festival. I love what he does. He's also a manager of bands, and I just love to have him on, not only to promote the festival, because everybody should pay attention and go to it. This lineup is unreal. And I know this just sounds like what other people or what people say about festivals lineups when they get announced, but this one, I don't care who you are, what sort of style of heavy music you like, you absolutely need to pay attention to what they got going on. So anyways, I had Scott on to discuss all the things about this year's edition, and then plus all the other things that we speak about, because we like to pontificate about, music and bands and the genre in general. So next week, Scott Lee from New England Metal and Hardcore Festival. Until then, please be safe, everybody. The show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Trust me in saying that no matter who you are, mental health challenges can affect you, and how you manage them can make all of the difference. That's why everyone should have access to mental health support that meets them where they are and helps them get through. BetterHelp provides online therapy on your schedule. It's flexible, simple to use, and more affordable than in-person therapy. Connect with a licensed therapist selected just for you. Learn more at betterhelp.com. That's betterhelp.com.
Hey everyone, it is Ryan Seacrest here. Ready to heat up your summer vacation? Get ready, things are about to get sizzling at Chumba Casino. Your summer getting a whole lot hotter with a special daily login bonus waiting just for you. So sign up now for Reels of Fun and Reels of Prizes right here at Chumba Casino with yours truly. Join me at ChumbaCasino.com and dive into a summer of social casino fun.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Imagine relying on a dozen different software programs to run your business, none of which are connected, and each one more expensive and more complicated than the last. It can be pretty stressful. Now, imagine Odoo. Odoo has all the programs you'll ever need, and they're all connected on one platform. Doesn't Odoo sound amazing? Let Odoo harmonize your business with simple, efficient software that can handle everything for a fraction of the price. Sign up today at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.